You're officially live.
Okay. And do you take attendance, Alicia, just by who's participating, or do we need to formally take attendance?
I just keep attendance based on who I can see, but it's up to you if you want to do it the more formal way of roll call.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do roll call.
Okay, this is in no particular order. Lon Pluckon,
I'm here.
Mike Kitzmiller,
Here.
Amal Ether,
Here.
Nicholas Abelosley,
Here.
Colette Atkins,
Here.
Stephen Mosier,
Here.
Carlos Nelson, Al Rowe,
Here.
Maxwell Grant, Frederick Brown,
Here.
Jennifer Tibbetts, Mike Darrow,
Here.
Janessa Carr.
Cersei here for Janessa.
Thank you. That's everyone.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we'll call the meeting to order, but we'll start with the first thing on the agenda, which is approval of the March 11th, 2021 minutes.
I'll move that the March 11, 2021 minutes be approved as presented. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the March 11th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the meeting minutes from March 11th have been approved. The next thing on the agenda is, at this point, I'm going to turn over the meeting to Lon to lead the meeting for the items 2 and 3.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So if I can indulge a little bit for everybody, I wanted to just talk about a few things before we jump right into approval of the task force statement. One is just to do kind of a spot check with the members of our group to see how everybody's doing, given the events of what happened up north. Unfortunately, it seems like almost every week or every month, we're getting bombarded by news of another tragic incident involving people of color and a police department. And we've been hit with another one in a community that's still struggling to find its way from the events of the first one. And so just wanted to do a quick check and see, is everybody doing okay? Is there anything that we can do to support? You know, how's everybody feeling? Anything that you just want to talk about?
Well, Lon, thank you.
I
for
so
bringing that
appreciate
up.
you offering that.
Okay, let's go ahead with Al and then Cersei. Okay. Yeah.
Lon, thanks for so sensitively bringing that topic up. I have a son and a daughter-in-law who live 2 blocks from the death scene and have engaged very heavily in that community, with my son working at the Adult Basic Ed Center right in the neighborhood. And so each day I have thoughts of what that's all about, and I'm very attentive to the process. So thank you.
Thank you. Cersei, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Al. And thank you, Lon, for inviting that and opening it up with that that sensitive invitation. I will share that it's been yet again another very difficult week, especially for the members of our organization, the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity, who are people of color. It feels like kind of a re-traumatization in many ways. It brings up both memories of past experience and fears of future. And so the idea that this task force exists is really about ensuring we don't have those kinds of incidents happen here, and to do everything we can to protect and promote the safety and support of people of color in particular in our community. We also have been hearing quite a lot from people who are Asian American, who experienced the shootings of a few weeks ago as a reminder of the ways that they've experienced being othered and being treated differently and discriminated against, quite frankly, here locally. And I think, you know, they express hope that the work we're doing will help us move to a place where we are able to overcome these kinds of moments. But right now there is a lot of pain in the community, and hopefully there'll be outlets for that pain moving forward. And I just do hope that our work, I mean, when we started with the Marion Alliance around policing, it was around this very experience that's kind of long-term, and really hoping we can dig into those conversations that are specifically around policing as we also, you know, do the other types of work that we have to do. But it's urgent, and it's urgent for a lot of people. So I thank you very much for everyone joining and for opening with that kind of acknowledgement and recognition.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, this is Mike speaking. I agree with you as well, sir, and I appreciate everyone for acknowledging, you know, the things and the situations that happen. And yes, I agree. As we move forward with this agenda, it's woken me back up. You know, I kind of, felt like, you know, things were changing and, you know, kind of stopped, you know, worrying a little bit. But this has opened up to, you know, being more focused on making sure those situations are not happening to my child or someone else's child. And, you know, with that being said, I appreciate you guys for allowing me to be on this task force so that, you know, we could play a part in helping these situations. And me being African-American or being a minority, I'm always open to talk to anyone, even if you don't understand. I'm open to talk and, you know, be able to communicate just to see how it is and what it is to see from our side of things. But I appreciate everyone that's on this board. I just want to tell everyone thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else who would like to say anything?
Okay. And then just one more quick item, just to provide some additional clarification. And to let the board as a whole know a little bit about what's going on. We are going to see some changes with the membership, the representation for the mayor group. I think Janessa unfortunately has come to realize that her other obligations preclude her from being able to take this one on in the role that she had originally hoped. So she's going to be stepping down from the board and has asked that Cersei be able to take her place on that. And then we've also had a nomination for another proxy, Joshua, I believe, was asked to be added to the proxy list. And then as we set our subcommittees up, we've put a lot of thought into this about how these should operate. And at least initially, I think we should restrict the participation in those to the members of this task force. As we get a little bit further along and start to really move our way out of COVID, I think we could look at potentially inviting others in. But with that wrinkle out there, I guess, even though I'm looking at this group being able to convene as a whole together in May, a little bit more distance and more vaccinations will give us more ability to look at bringing in some of those outside folks. And then the last thing before we launch into the discussion on the elevator pitch is I just wanted to let everybody know that Amal and I have started to explore potential options for bringing someone in who works in this arena professionally to potentially ask as a facilitator and a guide as we go through this. There are some things that I know we need to do as an organization to do, like an audit of our city operations and policies that just these are big sticky issues, and with just everything else that we have with derecho recovery, COVID, insurance, everything else, we don't have the bandwidth to be able to do justice to it internally. So we're looking at potentially bringing in some help to keep us going through the process and maintain the momentum that I want this effort and this committee to have.
And I also want to note that Jennifer has joined us now, so.
So there's a couple, there's a question in the comments, which just makes me want to offer the clarification about participation. So I'd like to introduce to you Joshua Milam, who is we hope will be accepted as our alternate, who is with us today and understands needing to be on these. And I believe Anna is on as well, although I can't see. So I just wanted you to know that folks are there. And so just clarify, it is a change, Lon, what you're saying about who can be on the subcommittee. So if you could just clarify that one more time, just to be clear.
Yeah, I think the question really revolves around the role of proxies and other participants in the group. And from our perspective, if a proxy is going to participate, they should be participating on that committee in their capacity as a proxy for the regular member of the committee. So we want to ensure that we've got that fair representation from the broad base of the entire community. I know that some of these issues are definitely weightier with others, and some have particular issues that they're very highly interested in. It wouldn't preclude them from being able to attend meetings or, you know, be able to offer comments. But when it comes time to do things like take a vote on something that might be made as a recommendation to the entire committee, or then the entire committee making a recommendation to the city council, those things need to be the members of the task force.
So when we go to being in person, are we then, is it going to, are the meetings going to be accessible like through Zoom to be able for community members to listen and participate that way?
Yeah, even though we're going to start being able to have meetings for our boards and commissions in person, at least through June, they're not likely to be completely open to the public where people could come sit in the room and everything. So we will still be doing the Zoom broadcast and doing that at the same time. So we've been doing that with city council now. Last time we had the city council actually in the room all together, but still did the meeting via Zoom. So that seems to work fairly well, still provides opportunities for public observation and, like in the cases of public hearings, public input. So I think we've got that piece of it ironed out.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. So it's not so much restriction, just looking at the quantity of people in a room, like the occupancy in a room.
Yeah, the Lynn County Public Health, we're still under tier 4 of their guidelines for public gatherings, which has limitations on the number of people, and with the amount, you still have to social distance, you still have to have adequate spacing. And with the space that we have in the room, we just have some natural limitations. They are talking about when we would go to tier 5, and tier 5 gives us a lot more capacity. So we'll just have to see when they make that decision.
Well, on the group could meet all in person, assuming everybody's comfortable with that, but it just wouldn't be open to public participation, but that would still be available via electronic means.
Correct.
Just to be clear for everybody. Okay. And is there, I mean, can we have that discussion? Is there anyone who would be uncomfortable with trying to get together in person as in a distanced way, and we can, you know, wear masks, just whatever we need to make people comfortable. But is there an objection to doing that starting with the next meeting?
I'm in a spot where I had my second vaccine last Friday, so by next meeting, I'm going to be feeling a lot more comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, we just want to make sure everyone is comfortable with that. My preference is that, you know, I think we could get more done and really be productive by being together in the same room to build the working relationships and to, you know, everyone to get to know each other. But you know, certainly we don't want to do that if it's making people uncomfortable in any way. And but I'm not hearing any objection that anyone has about maybe trying that for the next meeting. Is that accurate? Okay. I see
Lots of thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes.
could I maybe offer, that'd be great. I look forward to getting back together with everybody. But I wonder if perhaps if anybody's uncomfortable or would like to share that privately, that they could send you a note after the meeting today.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Okay.
bringing that up. Certainly, that's a given in any for any topic, any subject, any case. You can certainly always reach out to me or to Lon privately, or to Colette, or, you know, anybody. But certainly, if anybody wants to do that privately and has a concern, please do.
And maybe even one step further, Mayor, if I may, just always have a Zoom meeting open So that
Sure.
option's always available.
Yes, of course.
Also, if I could just comment quickly on your third point, Lon, about bringing in a facilitator. That's something that we've certainly from the Marion Alliance have been encouraging and are so pleased to hear that you're looking into that and that would be possibly something moving forward. I think that could be really powerful. And so thank you.
Yeah, I think that could really help move us forward. So, okay, great. If
So we're
there's
ready to move on to
other
discussion of
comments?
task force statement.
Okay, go ahead, Lon.
Yep. So then moving on, we would be into the discussion of the task force statement, the elevator pitch. So copies of that were provided with the agenda. So does anybody have any final edits, questions, comments before we would move forward with that?
Allow me to, this is Steve, and
Yeah.
excuse me. I took this for a test spin in front of about 80 to close to 90 people. I got one person that responded. I'm not saying it's a lead balloon, but it's a mouthful. If you're in a meeting and you're trying to present, but I did get some glowing remarks about having the task force, not about the elevator pitch. They were pleased to hear that the city was taking that positive step. Some of them were also part of the meeting, and I want to also address this too. They were pleased the city took the position about lawful source of income and the position you took. So they were pleased with that. The task force. Elevator pitch, not quite so. You need to have something that you can chew on, spit out, and they can take it with them. But I'd have to give them a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper to take this. So we really need to rethink this. This is okay inside your social media, but what is it that we would use when we're out in public and trying to bridge that gap between the community, stakeholders in the community, and what the city is trying to do? Other than that, that's probably it right there.
Oh, that's a good point, Steve. I'm sorry, Jennifer, but from my perspective, one of the things that I've always tried to do is when I'm writing something that I'm going to tell people, conversational English is different than academic English. I mean, this looks, it's great for a mission statement, but to your point, we might need to do something that's translated more into how you would naturally talk to someone if you're having a face-to-face conversation.
And that kind of, thank you for the feedback, because, you do have to put something down on paper, and it does tend to look like a mission statement. And with mission statements, typically people are like, I need to know this word for word and have it like perfect. And really the intent behind this was capturing the idea, so that way it's the same idea that can be utilized when you're having that conversation with someone. Like, I don't anticipate like ever handing this to someone, but to really be able to be like, okay, I really want to focus on the city's goal. And so I'm going to talk about the task force from how it's connected to the city's goal and what that means and that kind of thing. And so I don't know if maybe talking points would be maybe more useful than in a speech, like like, I know that's what we've been calling it, but
I understand what you're saying, Jennifer, and I do appreciate it being as a mission statement, like Lon has addressed and you've addressed that. But it is a talking point that you would like to be able to communicate when we go out and we do engage with the public on trying to get them to buy in to what the city is projecting. You've got to have some talking points and things that if you break it down and it hits the center, that you make that connection. That you can give them stuff to read later on or whatever and say, hey, go visit our website and this is our mission statement, or this is the city's strategic plan, and make that connection. But if I'm in a conversation and I'm in there with 80 people or so and giving a presentation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, I brought up about the task force. I tried to show them how the city is taking a positive step forward in making this a welcome environment. But then when I talked about the task force, I think, well, what do I have to explain that? And then I used the elevator speech, and I could hear people dropping off, and that part of the discussion just seemed to drift away. I lost them.
I love that you did that. That's so cool that you did that and that you have that data to bring back to us. So thank you for that. I would offer that one of the things that helps a statement like this is to be a little more concrete. Something like, one of the first issues we will be addressing is policing. Something simple like that, that's concrete, that would actually give folks a sense of, okay, I got a little idea of, like, and it doesn't have to just be one, it could be 1, 2, or 3. I wouldn't go more than 3, but that might be a way to add a talking point to it that makes it more meaningful.
So I have one question for Steve first. How many snores did you hear though? Did we get to that point?
Well, no, because this was at 9 o'clock, so they probably have had 1, maybe 2 cups of coffee.
Oh, okay, okay.
And this was the general subject matter was about fair housing.
Okay.
And since it's Fair Housing Month, and I tried to slip in our task force on top of that, so I kind of threw them a little curve in there.
No, I love it.
Any chance I can get to push this, I can get it out in front of anybody, I'm taking that opportunity. And with that, as well as I said before, about the city taking the position on lawful source of income and how that was a positive step. It goes towards the overall strategic plan, the inclusiveness of the city, and saying all people are welcome, and those kinds of things. So I'm not saying I'm a cheerleader, but I am out there beating the band.
So I wonder, I at least for me, where I come from, and Fred and Colette, please, I'd love to hear your feedback too. Is like, I want to know, is this the right track? Is this the right way that we're going? And then I'm all for then tasking our group again to come up with those talking points that can then help that. But but the other committee members too, I would love to hear from. So I'll stop talking.
Yes, I was going to suggest so that we make sure everyone, that we encourage everyone to comment and to hear what they have to say, that maybe people can use the hand raise function, and then that way, we can make sure everyone that wants to say something gets a chance. It's not trying to limit what people are saying, but that we make sure everyone has an opportunity before we come back to people who have already commented. So Al has raised his hand.
All right.
It's usually the mayor's way of telling me to let other people talk.
First of all, I think this effort is appreciated. Second is I think we will experience ourselves into the passion and the heartfelt spirit that goes with the work, and that's yet to begin. But for me, the statement caused me to, because if I'm going to interact with somebody with passion and purpose, I'm going to speak in common sense terms and be kind of direct. And so what popped out of me was basically, if you think about a day as being an AM and a PM, a morning and the rest of the day, 24/7 kind of thing, I just added a new time zone, and it's called EM. EM. Everybody matters in Marion. Everybody feels valued, and everybody brings value. And this committee is committed to listening to all perspectives as we deal with policies, procedures, and practices related to. And then if you want to get into kind of the way I felt when Steve and I met for a couple hours the other day, is basically we're little Jedis. And Jedis are people who try to bring positive force to things through seeing the world in a better way. And Jedi would mean justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And if I can't tell it to a 12-year-old or somebody buying a six-pack at the convenience store, it doesn't matter. I've lived in academics, and we can talk forever, but we really want to walk and gather the steam and momentum from the people we interact with. So this kind of prompted me to go in that direction.
Thanks, Al. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Chief.
Yeah, I'm a little more, I guess, practical, and I keep looking at when we started this is we've never really had said how we're going to define success. And I mean, when we've got to, if we're going to use this as kind of our statement, what are we looking to do? And so I'm thinking it's more in the line of when I looked at those change management models, you know, the difference between the GARE and the other one. The GARE was a little more to the point of, you know, hey, let's identify policies, practices, and processes which are not equitable and inclusive, and address them. I mean, that's pretty much what we're here to do, is it not? I mean, could we just, and I don't want to say dumb it down, but if it's for me, it would be dumbing it down. But again, I kind of go back to let's identify what the problems are in the city's policies, practices, and processes and address them.
Okay. Anyone else? Or any particular thoughts on what the chief just said? Okay.
Cersei's got her hand up, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cersei.
Just to
Sorry
say,
about
I
that.
agree with the chief. That's all I want to say. I agree with the chief. I think that would be helpful. It would be good on the agendas and on the elevator speech. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Cersei. Al, did you? Oh, no. Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Amal.
I agree with Chief. The purpose is to review policies and practices and processes and improve them. And also the manner we want to do that in a team way. So we're coming together with community members, city personnel, even though it's city initiative and a city goal, citywide goal of becoming a more welcoming community. The way we're addressing equity concerns is by coming together and figuring it out together. So I want us to get that essence in the elevator speech, that we're going about it as a team, us and the community, and figuring it out.
So if I can attempt to kind of summarize what I'm hearing from the discussion is that people like what's in here, but this is really maybe more suited for the printed material side of things or for the website side of things. And what we need is kind of our list of bullet points of the action verbs of what it is that we're going to do when we're talking about what the task force's goal is to support the community and make it the welcoming community we want it to be. So should we ask our wordsmiths that put this together to maybe take a crack at doing our list of bullet points that could be under this or complement it? All right. Any more discussion on that? Okay. So then the next item we have on the agenda is the equity change model discussion. With this one, I'm going to ask Al to weigh in on, and Steve, I think.
And hopefully you have access to a copy with you right now. But Steve and I spent what seemed like 5 minutes, but it turned into well over 2 hours acting about everything and the passion that we share for moving things forward. So what you have before you is just you might say a three-part. If my internet connection is unstable, I will slow down here. So it's just three parts. And then I'll ask Steve to comment as well. A model, a framework, and a tool. And basically, none of the three should be separate. This all needs to be integrated, connected. Approach where we see ourselves building knowledge, awareness, and empathy together to move things forward, to affect change now and into the future for Marion. And so we need, and I'm pleased that we're.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
I don't know if we lost
Can you
him.
hear me?
We lost Al.
We did for a second there, Al.
He's back.
I know, I just got kicked out and now I'm back in. So, and I think we have lights on our street over here. So things don't send out public works yet. But
Al, did we want to try to share that chart with him, or?
Yeah. Can we share it on the screen? Have we all been empowered to have that?
No, but somebody has to have it.
Yeah,
I
if the
don't have
host, whoever's assigned to host, if they could post that, that would be fine.
I think Alicia should be able to do that.
I'm working on it, sorry.
Thanks, Alicia. And so we really see the power of this is how can we connect this together? So here we go. So,
Fantastic.
and if you can enlarge just slightly, that might help folks. Perfect, bigger, 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 bigger. There we go. So there's three parts and we just label them: a model, a framework, and a tool. And obviously we need all three integrated. But the first thing basically is you start talking about this stuff and you can go technical and micro real quick. This is a human-centered process where it's most important to pull everybody together. So we're not asking for adoption or the deeper rationale on why we need to know how we're approaching this change in a content neutral way first, and then we can go from there. So at the top, we acknowledged from our last meeting that the city had adopted explicitly a change management approach. They adopted ADCAR, shared by Lon at our last meeting. They did that about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and used it as they formed their strategic plan, and have really kind of adopted the philosophy and the principles of it to start to inform things across the city. And when it's one thing to just lay it out here and you don't just turn a switch and have everybody doing it, this grows over time. And so there may be various stages of maturity of this model in different pockets and at different times in the organization, but we acknowledge it. But first of all, this particular model, it occurs in a designed sequence that's repeated over and over and over, regardless of the scope of what is being worked on. So you start with awareness. What's the awareness of the need? And then you move, and how is that awareness moving us to a desire to support and take part? And then how does that desire take us into the need for deeper knowledge on how to approach the change? And then with that knowledge, what do we need to do to implement it well with fidelity? And that usually means some training, development, and the like. And then how do we reinforce it to sustain it? How do we celebrate it? How do we do after action result kinds of things and see where we're at in reviews? So this is in play. It is to honor the state of the city in terms of adopting it, and not adding on something that's completely separate that someone else would have to attend to. And it's kind of to build from it. So the next item, part 2, was the equity change framework, and you all had a chance to examine it. It was just pretty much an extraction right from the article itself. But if you look at it, it could easily be integrated and connected into the ADKAR model. In fact, it would be if we're just consciously aware of the parts of this one. But it starts with the vision and the engagement of stakeholders. And as a unified committee, task force with others, we're going to need an equity defined definitions and vision and how we're going to engage stakeholders and what is our awareness of the issues and how do we get those internally and externally is going to be an important phase. But then you roll right into it, assessing readiness for the change. Well, that's an awareness, desire, knowledge, and ability phase, which is just kind of common and natural. And then do we have the infrastructure to advance it? And you can see there, that's basically people and who's responsible for what, and having high quality data available. And then how will we sustain it over time? Now, if I just stop right here, I would just say what we're after is we should be able to speak 2 years down the road when somebody says, you guys have accomplished so much for so many people in Marion. How did you do it? And we don't go to idiosyncratic events. We illustrate to them that we are getting stronger and stronger and more mature in how we make change, and that we understand complex change and we get real good at it, regardless of the problem, regardless of the issue, regardless of who's on a committee, who's the elected official, or who's being employed, that this stands the test of time. And then lastly, the third part, Alicia, scroll just a bit there. Maybe went to the next page. There we go. And then this is kind of where it gets down and dirty in terms of, as you read the article, and I would underscore right below there. We need some tools that we can use early and often, and use the tools to align ourselves with our change model. And we need to incorporate tools and our own questions throughout all phases of the change. And that particular article laid out some basic questions, but they're not the questions or all the questions that we would want, but they would certainly be valuable for us to move ahead. And what was shared, I don't know if it's part of the attachment, but Fred Brown shared some things in terms of change management and project management that he's aware of and experiences in his role over at Collins Aerospace. And these are common ways of doing things. There are hundreds of change management and project management methods and language and the like, but certainly we believe that it would behoove us to at least know that there are phases and some tools that we can use to inform us, and then we can speak to them in the clearest, simplest way and not get bogged down in terms of the complexity of this process, but really build as much trust and energy with the community to move them forward, and we can attend to the phase of change we're in. So I'm going to pause there and just ask Steve if he wants to add some things in his thoughts, then take some comments from the group.
Sure, I'll be brief so that we can hear what the other thoughts are. But Lon, I did appreciate you offering up the ability to get someone else outside of your group to maybe help, because upon reading both of these formats and looking at what Fred had, a lot of it came back to say that there's a chance, not an outside chance, but a very strong chance that the city manager in your current capacity may not have enough time to fully devote to all the things that are involved in this particular structure. And not to say that the city manager couldn't be involved, but just not being the main source and or the assistant city manager as well, because you have a lot more to do than just this. And that in itself is enough on your plate. And this takes a lot of time and effort to do. Fortunately, what we saw and spending 2 hours with Al was not exactly the thing I had in mind that when we met, because, you know, I didn't know Al very well. I happen to know him very well now. And I, for one, was not really sure about what this was all about until I finally had a chance to read the information, talk to him, and realize that this is very intensive, and yet we have somewhat of a start of change management model that we could at least start working on and going from there. So there's a lot involved in here, and I do appreciate you guys recognizing the fact that maybe with all that you have on your plate now that you may not be able to fully dedicate yourself to it, but yet still stay involved, but maybe just off to the side. I appreciate that. That's about all I had to really offer.
Okay, we'll take comments from the group or questions for Al and Steve. Cersei, please go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks for doing this work. Quick question. Was this your summary of the documents we got last time? Is that where this came from?
Yeah, the second, the middle and the bottom part were attached to the 2 articles that we were given in prior sessions.
Great.
They didn't
Thank you.
come from us. They came from another source.
From another source. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that we were to
Okay.
read. Yep.
I have just 2 quick comments on it, and then I think we'll see how it's used. The first is on the what we're looking at now, the GARE, use of a racial equity tool. I am noticing that in this summary, it doesn't name the issues related to equity that we're trying to engage in proposals on and analysis around and that sort of thing. In the analysis and strategies column, it does say, what are your strategies for advancing racial equity? But I don't see race named elsewhere or other forms of equity, other equity issues we might be addressing. And so I will just remind us that simplified, these are fabulous questions. As a society, we tend to stray away from naming race and being explicit about the challenges we're trying to face. And so I just would remind us that we need to do that throughout this tool. The use of this tool is intended to support the conversations. And so we often will need a prompt within each of these stages to remember to focus on race or to focus on LGBTQIA or whatever the issue related to equity is that we're concerned about. That's my first comment, is we need to remind ourselves, and it helps to have specific prompts like the one about racial equity. My second quick comment is if you scroll to the other one, or just if you're looking on your own at the bottom of that page right there with the equity change framework, this will seem little, but the notion of, in the second column, identify primary unit of change as the individual. I actually would not agree with that. I will go back and see where that kind of came from. I agree that the individual is a unit of change that is critically important in this work, but also I like a framework that has a 4-part individual, interpersonal, institutional, and ideological are all components of understanding equity and inequity. We don't have to be taking that one, but I think we at least need to be talking about institutional. So the individuals are part of institutions, but institutions also impact individuals. And we are, I think, looking at least both, if not those other aspects as well.
What was the fourth one?
Individual, interpersonal, institutional, and ideological.
Ideological.
And ideological is basically, like our statement. These are our statements of our mission and our vision and our values and the ways we think, what we know, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, Cersei, I would comment on that and say that we need to be conscious and simultaneous on keeping all 4 of those things top of mind all the time. And this particular article, it was just another article to read. I don't know how it addressed it, but all those things integrate at one point or another, literally all the time. And so I appreciate your insight there.
Amal?
I think this is an implementation and maintenance tool, but the individual here is the agent, is the change agent. When we have a plan, it has to be carried out through individuals.
Yeah, one of the things that comes into this perhaps that isn't clear here is when you're involved in change management, there's a sponsor of the change and a manager of the change and core individuals with very prescriptive responsibilities to execute it according to some measures. And all that gets to be discussed along the way as you manage a project. The danger zone of all of this is people failing to see the relationship between project management and human change. And so often if ADKAR is criticized, it's criticized because it goes too micro into projects. And in human-centered change, some would steer away from it. There's pluses and minuses on every model. We just got to find our own way and have our way of speaking toward where we're at.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands raised. Cersei.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think the reason I'm particularly concerned about having more than just the unit of change as the individual in a process of assessing readiness for change, we do need a way of understanding where individuals are, but we also need to be assessing the system's readiness. What are the system's policies? What are the practices within the system? Like, I think we're in the assessing readiness aren't only thinking about the individual's readiness. It is what do we know about the system and what's already in place that indicates we've got the infrastructure we need or we don't in terms of then moving to change.
So next steps with this as we move forward soon to a face-to-face type of approach, we really do need to start generating the types of questions that would grow collective conscious awareness of what it is we're exploring and generate the questions so that we're really becoming more aware of our current state and where we want to head. And right now we haven't really been able to really get started along those lines. And hopefully that would lead us into developing our own approach to how we want to make this, make progress as a group. So I would suggest that one of our next actions would be to generate the awareness that we want, tied exactly to equity, asking questions like, well, what is racism per se? Why should we be concerned about it? What are our assumptions about it? What can we do to eradicate it? All those things. We need to open up deeper dialogue and then shape kind of how we want to proceed, and boldly head in together as a group and have some tough conversations, but and engage other people in the community.
Okay, Cersei, just a second. Steve, did you have your hand up for a little bit ago?
We could probably take this down now.
I did have it up. I guess I understand the concern, but what we were looking at, that this was what we were told was already adopted, that Lon said that they're using something like this. So we tried to take that and incorporate it into what the two handouts were, not necessarily looking at the various flavors or that it's a complete, but wanted to at least have it to relate to what you were supposedly reading up on and understanding what the change management approach was. We know there are some shortcomings, but we also know that we don't know the full scope of how the city of Marion is actually utilizing this. That's what we have to learn and be instructed on before we're actually able to come to any kind of consensus on this, or do we shelve this and go with something else?
I guess I can weigh in on that a little bit, because the strategic plan is really the first process that we've gone through where we've followed this model, and we have not necessarily followed it religiously, like we're adherents to this is the only way that we would do business. But that was the basis for the process that our consultant walked us through in development of the strategic plan. So when I look at where we're at on this continuum right now with this group, we've got the A and the D crossed off. We know that there's a need for change. We have a desire to support in and take part of the change. Now we're getting down into the knowledge of how to change and what to change. So that involves getting the data, which is initiating the equity change, assessing that readiness, the pieces that are broken out here in phase 2, and then determining what we need to put in place for the infrastructure to be able to create it and support it. So, we use it, but I would say loosely versus religiously as far as how we're using a change management framework. And we've got people that I think are still experiencing it for the first time by virtue of going through the strategic planning model with us.
Okay, Cersei, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And Steve, thank you for doing, it really does help to boil this down the way you did, because the document was good and instructive and very long. And so this is very helpful, I think. And here's what I'm understanding. Here's how I'm understanding we might use it. When we organize our subcommittee to talk about policing, we might go in and think, all right, phase 1 of this subcommittee, we're going to go through that first column and we're going to talk about these issues. So for example, recognize what practices are working and not working for disenfranchised communities, particularly of color. That would be the question before the subcommittee. And we would spend some time saying what's working in the way we're engaging in policing in Marion and what's not working, what are the issues we want to address. And in doing that, we need to balance the use of quantitative data and qualitative stories. And so we would be thinking about that. Oh, are we focusing only on quantitative data? Do we have enough of kind of the narrative story behind it? And back and forth. That's how I understand we would maybe use this as a way to kickstart a subcommittee. If that seems right, I think we're on the same page. I'm interested when the chief spoke, it was about let's get specific. That's where I think we go. That's how this helps us get specific, if I'm understanding it right.
Yes, yes,
Steve-
I
Chief Kitzmiller?
believe you are.
Oh. Steve, did you have a comment on Cersei's comment?
I just said that, yes, I believe we are. I think that's what Al and I had spent that time chatting about all this, that how we at least have a something that we can start on and move from there. Because when you look at this stuff, it's pretty labor intensive if you're starting from scratch. And excuse me, the fact that the city has already done a couple of these, the awareness and the desire, and moving on to the knowledge, allows us to at least take that and try to get it to, you know, to incorporate a lot of these other things.
Okay. Chief Kitzmiller, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I did, and then I muted and then lowered my hand again. No,
Okay.
I'm on board with what they're saying. I think Steve and Cersei, like I say, I think the risk we run, the longer we wait before we start actually diving into some specifics, we're going to people start losing interest. And I think if we make it, and again, don't anybody take offense at this, if we make this endeavor too fluffy, when we roll this out to city employees, it becomes more of a process-driven endeavor than it does a results-driven endeavor. And I mean that by they're going to look for boxes to check and say, okay, well, we're just checking this box today, and next month we're going to check this box. So I like the idea of when we roll out something new here is putting points on the board fairly quickly so people can see that, hey, this is a positive thing and there's results that can be had. And then if we need to get more in depth, then we kind of stretch it out there. But we've got to do, in my opinion, we've got to get something rolling that we can show some progress on, or we're going to be just spinning our wheels.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to ask for before we got to the end of the meeting is going through my notes to see who was interested in being on the policing subgroup. I had you, Chief, Cersei, me, Al, and I think Steve had indicated an interest too. I was going to see if we could get a commitment together for when we wanted to do our first committee meeting. Not that those are the only ones that could participate, but those were the ones who I had in my notes that had formally indicated an interest.
Yes.
Amal, didn't
Excuse me,
Amal
I
want to
did
be on that
express
committee?
it.
Yes,
So Amal wanted to be on the, I thought you had said that.
yeah, I did.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just saying that, yes, I had expressed interest at the last meeting.
Okay. So I think you had the right list, Lon, except for Amal was missing.
She's never shy about telling me she wants to come to a meeting.
Do these, does the Thursday, this time slot opposite the council meeting work? If we did not next Thursday, but the 2 Thursdays from now at 5, does that work for everybody for that
Like
one?
the 29th, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clear for me.
I'm all.
Yep.
Steve, Cersei, you guys good?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay. We're coming up on 6 o'clock. So Lon, was there more you wanted to have on this discussion, or?
No, we got to where I'd hoped we would with that, and then got the meeting scheduled. That was my other goal for tonight, was to actually get that one formally got on the books. Because to Mike's point, I mean, I think we've got some goodwill out there in the community by forming this and bringing this group together. But if we don't start taking action on it, we're going to start to lose some of that momentum. And, you know, I said at the beginning, when I put together the first kind of work plan draft for this group, that we wanted to focus on outcomes and wanted to actually be doing stuff rather than just meeting for the sake of meeting. So we don't want to lose people because we're not making progress on these issues. The only thing I would say is that just, you know, as we've thought about these in looking at organizational capacity and everything else, just want to make sure that we are staying for these first projects within the realm of what the city can directly affect. Not that we can't have a role in convening other groups, the Chamber of Commerce, school, et cetera, perhaps further down the line. But for these initial ones, we want to be focusing on things that where we can have a direct impact on the community or on our own policies, our own ordinances, practices, procedures.
I think that makes sense. And then you can expand it as we go forward.
Yeah, we can't solve the world's problems until we've fixed ours.
At least not without alcohol involved.
Are there any contrary opinions to that? I mean, is that a accurate way to proceed? Does that make sense to everyone? Just want to make sure everyone's on board with everything. Okay, I see heads shaking, yes. So, okay, great. Anything else we need to cover today?
On that police subcommittee, do you guys want to meet in person or
Yes.
Zoom?
I think if we could use your training room, Chief, we probably have enough room to be separated.
Sure. Yep.
Okay,
Great.
well, I appreciate, oh, I'm sorry, anyone saying something? Okay, I appreciate everyone's work and everyone sticking with us here as we kind of find our way and try to find a path to making some progress. And I do agree with what Lon said and what the chief said, and feel like we need to start making progress so we don't lose interest, so we don't lose the momentum. And I think we have a good thing going here, and a lot of good can come out of it. So I appreciate everyone sticking with us, all the hard work that's been done. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone next time in person, hopefully. So, okay. And in the meantime, please feel free to reach out if you have any comments, any issues, any suggestions. You're perfectly welcome to reach out to me or to Lon.
I am so sorry. I
Go
just
ahead.
realized that we keep losing Mike. He wanted to volunteer to be on that committee. If no other committees are going right now, he has the time for that. So I don't know if other committees are meeting now, and we've lost him. So I don't know if we can, maybe we can do this offline. And
Communications was the only other one that's convened, and I don't know, Colette, if they've met since the last general meeting or not.
We worked on an article that's going to come out in the Marion Messenger, just an awareness article. So we did work on that, and we'll be getting back together now to review the feedback that you all have given us this evening. So happy to invite and welcome anybody that's interested in joining that.
Okay.
Thanks
I
for.
think Mike wanted to be on the policing subcommittee, and so but I don't want to speak
Yeah.
for him. If you can just hold it as an open possibility, that would be awesome.
We'll make sure he gets the notification and everything.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time, and have a good weekend. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.